Hello YouTube and welcome to my latest video discussing this week's episode of Deadliest Warrior. This week's episode pitted the Nazi Waffen-SS and the Communist Viet Cong. The episode was of course another modern matchup, and the weapon choice were a tad odd as no one was given a long-range weapon and the weapon selection was questionable, but seemed fairly even. I'll of course comment on better weapons and anything that struck me odd. For close-range weapons they tested the Mauser C96 pistol against the Viet Cong TT pistol. Both weapons were determined to be very deadly, but the edge was given to the Mauser C96 for its ability to go full auto. However, I would like to point out the fact that the gun they tested was the M1932 variant. Not a huge mistake, but somewhat annoying that they didn't point that out. The Tokarev is also a Russian-made weapon but was used by various communist forces. All in all, this matchup was pretty fair. Interestingly enough, despite the advantage the Mauser was said to have, it only scored a handful of extra kills. The kill totals being 50 to 42. For mid-ranged weapons that tested the Nazi MP-28 submachine gun against the Viet Cong MAT-49 submachine gun. Both weapons were tested and both weapons proved to be deadly, so the matchup was considered to be a draw. Despite being called a draw, the MP-28 scored nearly double the kills. The MAT-49 was the Viet Cong's highest scoring weapon at 177 kills. Logically, if the matchup was a draw, then wouldn't the kill totals be closer? I'm calling BS on this matchup. Instead of a long-ranged weapon test, they did a test on explosive weapons test. In this test they put the Nazi S-mine, also known as the Bouncing Betty, versus the Soviet-made Viet Cong POMS-2 landmine and F-1 hand grenade. This test showed that both weapons were deadly, but the edge was given to the POMS-2 and F-1 combo due to its surprise factor, but much like the MAT-49 test, this didn't make much of a difference as the S-mine was only a scant 5 kills behind. For special weapons they tested the Nazi Flammenwerfer for 35 against the Punji stakes, which are more or less just sharpened bamboo stakes placed in the ground and coated with poison either from leaves or frogs and even human waste. This matchup was honestly pretty pointless. Much like I thought, the stakes were a very poor choice. Not surprising, it only scored 86 kills. As usual, the episode suffered from poor weapon choices. The thing that confused me is they showed the Alaska 47s and they could have also been a Chinese copy, the Type 56. The Waffen in the simulation were also shown using what appear to be Karabiner 98K rifles. The Viet Cong also had Russian-made SKS rifles in the Chinese Type 56 copies. Both the Waffen and Viet Cong also had mortars, RPGs, and heavy machine guns. So why both sides didn't get some form of weapons mentioned above? Overall, it was pretty interesting matchup, and I'm glad Spike didn't go down the politically correct route and letting the Viet Cong win by default. Anyways, see you folks later, and sorry about not posting a video on the Aztec vs Azand, but I'll get around to it later. Back to playing Lost Planet 2.